You're listening to a podcast from the BBC World Service. This is Hardtalk with me, Stephen Sacker. Thanks for downloading this edition of the programme. I do hope you enjoy it. Welcome to Hardtalk with me, Stephen Sacker. My guest today has been through the most extraordinary political experience since the beginning of this year. Mohammed Waheedh was Vice President of the Indian Ocean island nation of the Maldives, number 2 to the charismatic, democratically elected President, Mohammed Nasheed. But in January, relations between the two men turned sour. And in early February, President Nasheed dramatically resigned and then claimed that he'd been ousted in a de facto coup d'etat led by elements in the security forces. Mohammed Waheedh was then hastily sworn in as president and declared he would unify his island nation. But he hasn't. His new cabinet has been condemned as a collection of cronies of the autocratic former Maldivian President Gayoom. Opposition activists have mounted protests and prevented Parliament from reconvening. In short, the Maldives' young democracy seems to be in danger of sinking beneath the waters of the Indian Ocean. Is the country's new leader capable of saving it? President Mohammed Waheedh in Male, the capital of the Maldives. Welcome to Hardtalk. Mr. President, you said just the other day that things had changed for the better in your country. Given that we see protests on the streets, we see a bitterly divided country, and we see allegations that you are president because of a coup d'etat in the Maldives, I'm struggling to see how things are better inside your country. Please explain.
We are hoping things will be better. We have an opportunity now to put democracy back on track and to do what is necessary to build democratic institutions in the country. We embarked on a democratic path many years ago, leading to the multi-party elections in 2008. But since then, we have seen progressively undermining of our constitution and rule of law in the last 3 years. And what has led to this situation is partly the challenges that we have faced for democracy. So now it is a time, it is an opportunity for all political parties to reflect once again and to try to put democracy back on track. I am working with all political parties, and I have invited Mr. Nasheed's party also to join and to work together. I have now put together a multi-party cabinet. I have invited MDP, that which is Mr. Nasheed's party, also to join. So far he hasn't responded. But the kind of divisions that have been caused in Maldives politically have to be overcome through dialogue and not through violence on the street.
Yes, well, so let's address some of these points, if we may. You talk about legitimacy, and you say that your country was deviating from the path of democracy over the last few years, 3 years, I think you said. Let me just quote to you some words given to the UN General Assembly last September. Quote, "My country, the Maldives, was a harbinger of the Arab awakening. I can report without exaggeration that Maldivians enjoy more freedom today than at any other point in their history." Do you know who said that just a few months ago?
I probably said it.
Yeah, you said
well.
it. You said it. Now,
Yes.
how does that
Yes,
square? How
but,
does that square with you telling me that under President Nasheed the country was deviating from the democratic path?
I'll give you an example. One of the basic freedoms that we enjoyed in Maldives is the freedom from arbitrary arrest and the freedom from fear. That's one of the biggest achievements in democracy. But what you have seen in Maldives in the last few months and so on is an eroding of those freedoms and leading to, as you very well know, the military being ordered to take serving judge from his home, from his bed, and disappearing. And this is the kind of incidents that completely undermines our certainty in that we have some sense of assurance that we have freedom from arbitrary arrest and disappearance.
And you, hang on, you feel, obviously, former President Nasheed argues about the case of this Chief Justice from the Criminal Court, but even if we accept what you've just said about his arbitrary detention, you think that is justification for a coup d'etat, do you?
There was no coup in Maldives. There was a resignation by the president for whatever reasons, and clearly there are questions about the circumstances, and I have now set up an independent inquiry to look into it. But our constitution is very similar to the United States Constitution. For whatever reason, when the president is unable to continue, either through resignation or any other means, then the serving vice president is required under the Constitution to swear in. And so my swearing in is perfectly legitimate. It was on the request of the Speaker of the Parliament and the oath of office performed by the Chief Justice of the country. So, irrespective of what happened prior to my taking of office, my presidency is according to the Constitution, and I am required to perform my duties and take the country forward.
Well, let me quote to you, if I may, the words of your own brother, Naushad Waheedh, who served as a senior diplomat in the Maldivian High Commission here in London. He says that you, and he says he loves you, but he says you seized power in an illegal coup, which was both immoral and illegal. The words of your own brother.
I love my brother too, but his loyalty is clearly with Mr. Nasheed. He was appointed there by Mr. Nasheed, so I can understand his sentiments, but he was very far away from the situation here. And if you also come to Maldives and see for yourself what's happening here, you will understand that there are maybe many reasons, many explanations to what happened here, including the fact that President Nasheed just simply lost it and he was unable to control the situation.
But with all due respect, when you say your brother wasn't there, neither were you, frankly, in the room when, as former President Nasheed has described it to me, he had 3 military officers in front of him, he had a dozen and more military officers behind him, all of them delivering a message saying, if you do not resign now, we will resort to arms within 1 hour. That amounts to a coup d'etat, and you, by taking the job as president in his place, have been a collaborator in that.
The President Nasheed should have, he resigned in front of live television and he had his cabinet behind him. He should have indicated, he should have said, I'm sorry, I'm being forced to resign. He could have said that. He didn't. He signed his letter by himself, and if he indicated even indirectly, then we would have gotten the message. I don't think he was forced. Clearly I wasn't there, and therefore I don't know all the details, but as I said, I have set up an inquiry commission. They'll find out what the real truth was.
That commission will want to know whether it is indeed true, as has been reported in the Maldives, that you had late-night meetings with prominent figures in the opposition directly before the so-called coup d'etat. Is it true?
I have had meetings with many political leaders. As Vice President of the country, it is my responsibility to listen to what people have to say. This country was going through a very hard time with demonstrations every night. And in the first time when they wanted to see me, I informed Mr. Nasheed that they wanted to come and see me. He paid no attention to it. Demonstrations were going late into night every night, and then when they came to see me, yes, it was kind of late at night. But I met them and I informed the cabinet and Mr. Nasheed about their meeting the next morning.
Is it also true that one of your brothers, Ali, appeared at the state television station, I'm guessing perhaps the very building that you're in now, and came along with security force personnel and informed the managing director at the time that he was taking over, and this all happened actually before former President Nasheed had submitted his formal resignation?
I don't believe that sequence of events were right. He did come, but that was much later on. He's somebody who had worked in the station for many, many years, and he knew the place. Clearly, that day, the events were complicated. So I'm not sure if
You're not sure?
Had anything.
Right. You're not sure.
I'm
it just
not sure if he had anything
seems a little odd to me, given there's so many allegations are swilling around your country. Many of the critics of what you have done in recent weeks suggesting that you were party to this conspiracy, this coup d'etat. It surprises me you're not sure, and I guess you're going to have to explain to the investigating committee exactly what you knew and when you knew it. Question is, are you prepared to have an outsider, somebody from outside the Maldives, sit as a senior representative on that investigation committee?
I have left the investigation to a prominent inquiry commission, and they are free to invite anybody they want, including foreign observers, to observe the investigation.
Yeah, but they haven't done that, have they? And it's interesting that you appointed as chairman the former defence minister from the government of the former, it has to be said, autocratic President Gayoom, who of course is the bitter enemy of former President Nasheed. I just wonder again how that can be a really independent committee of inquiry.
No, this gentleman who is chairing it has been living abroad for some time now, and he has not been involved in politics locally, and the rest of the members in it are also not involved in politics. It is very hard. This is a very small community, and it's very hard to find respectable people to serve on these kind of committees. It took some time. We shared the first names with also Mr. Nasheed's party. We didn't get a response to it, and therefore we had to go and set up the commission.
But Mr. Waheedh, you are President of the nation now. If you were to say on this programme, on Hard Talk, that you believe it's only right and proper that a senior figure from outside the Maldives, from the international community, should sit as an active representative on this investigation committee to discover what really happened during the transfer of power, that would carry weight. Are you prepared to say it here and now?
Yes, I will support it. I will support it, definitely.
So you want to see an outside, overseas, active participant sitting on the committee, not just an observer, but actually sitting on the panel?
I have no reservations about it. And as you know, we are working very closely with the Commonwealth right now. We have a Commonwealth Special Envoy who is arriving in Maldives in a matter of few hours, and we will provide all cooperation necessary to them.
The Commonwealth, you mentioned, also has called for a declaration that there will be early elections in the Maldives. Constitutionally, because you've taken over as president, you could, it seems, run your presidency all the way through to the autumn of 2013. But the Commonwealth, the European Union, the Indian government, and many others too have called on you and your country to make sure there's a fresh presidential election within months, as soon as possible. Are you prepared to say you will do that?
Stephen, we have a constitution. According to the constitution, the election can be brought forward by 120 days. I have already said that I am prepared to support that. Clearly, any earlier election has to be approved by the Parliament, and some constitutional amendment has to take place. And for this, I have said the discussion should go into the Parliament now, and the Parliament should discuss these things, including what needs to be done in order to stabilize the situation so that we can have a free and fair election. I don't believe that we can have a free and fair election immediately because, as you know, the supporters of Mr. Nasheed do not believe in any institutions of government except for Parliament. Even Parliament, they are currently refusing to open.
But Mr. Nasheed, as you know, he says the basic principle here is that he will not cooperate either in the convening of the Parliament or any other political dialogue until there is a clear commitment to early elections. And if you're saying the earliest the election can be is 120 days before October of 2013, that's not going to be early enough. He wants the elections this year at the very least.
Well, he can have the election this year if the Parliament approves an amendment to the Constitution. I am all for it, and I have already said that I will encourage and work with all political parties to achieve that,
so
if that's what the Parliament wants.
When would you like to see the election, Mr. President?
As early as the Parliament wants.
Yeah, but when? Show some leadership here. You have taken the job. You are now the President. Tell me when you believe these elections could take place, the earliest moment.
You see, we have several political parties. This is not a dictatorship. I cannot decide myself. We have many political parties. I'm working with most of them, and they have to come to an understanding with MDP on a date. I'm not empowered to say this is a particular date in which we are going to have elections. This has to be worked out through discussion.
But are you now prepared to say, after we've seen all the chaos in the Parliament and the MDP and Nasheed supporters preventing the Speaker from actually convening the Parliament, you're prepared to say that the first order of business in the Maldives today has to be fixing early elections?
Absolutely.